Hi, I'm Patrick Giguère with Cosmic Alchemist Astrology, and welcome to today's exciting episode. So I need to keep this quick because I've got other stuff going on, but I want to talk about a conjunction that's happening today. So today is December the 15th, 2021, and today Mars and Ketu, the south node of the moon, in Vedic astrology we call the south node Ketu. So FYI, I'm doing Vedic astrology. If the sign placement of the planets sound off, that's why, because I'm using a different zodiac. This is actually the mother system to the mainstream modern tropical astrology. And a quick thank you to everybody who likes, views, shares my videos, and subscribes to my channel. It's a big help. I just passed 500, so I appreciate it. Thank you, Emily. Anyway, as far as this conjunction goes, this is in Scorpio. So Mars is the ruler of Scorpio by Vedic reckoning. And Ketu and Pluto are the co-rulers. So it's got two rulers in Scorpio. Scorpio has two of its rulers. So a lot of power coming out. This is going to unleash a lot of anger, a lot of volatility, violence, anger, indignation. And this year, 2021, is going to end with a bang, especially when we get to the end of the month, because Mars is going to keep transiting and it's going to reach the degree, the 18th degree of Scorpio, where the eclipse happened, the solar eclipse in Scorpio of December 4th. So it happened just what? Almost a couple weeks ago. So yeah, it's 2021 is going to have a crazy ending, and 2022 is going to be even wilder, but it's not going to be mega death. We're not all going to starve to death. We're not all going to COVID camp, FEMA camp. None of that's happening. It's going to be chaotic because World War III is already happening, and World War III is a struggle between the deep state, so the mega banks, the mega corporations that puppeteer the government, that bully, bribe, and buy and blackmail all of the politicians. So it's a struggle between that deep state, the mega corporations, and the people. And basically, people like Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, George Soros, people on that level who are basically corporate communists, they use false progressivism in order to advance corporate interests. These people are full-blown narcissists, and narcissists have no true internal identity. They only define themselves based on their appearance and what other people think of them. So they have no identity. They have really no opinions and drives and desires of their own. So they think everybody else is like that, and they are sort of putting a whole life plan together for everybody in the world that they want everybody to be forced to adhere to. And they're already doing this by pushing injectable experimental medicine. And they've been using government and media to push all this. So people are fighting back because they don't want just out-of-touch billionaires living in ivory towers telling them what to do, and having their little minions at Harvard and Yale and all the other universities telling them what to do, and their little minions in government doing the same. So people are going to start fighting back. Scorpio deals with anger, it deals with conspiracies, it deals with scandals, it deals with your deep unconscious emotions. So the emotions and reactions that you're not aware of, but that are always going on. And your unconscious mind is your internal manifester. So it literally builds your life and your reality because it dictates how you react to people, how you react to the world. And it's your unconscious assumptions, your unconscious emotional assumptions that you base your worldview on. So this is why Scorpio comes before Sagittarius. because Sagittarius deals with the truth, it deals with philosophy, worldviews, spirituality, religion, and higher learning. So your assumptions, your emotional assumptions become your intellectual beliefs and thoughts and all that kind of thing. So, and because before this Mars Ketu conjunction, which is happening today, the 15th, almost 2 weeks before, you had that solar eclipse in Scorpio. It was a Ketu eclipse. So the sun and the moon, which conjunct on solar eclipses, they conjuncted with Ketu. So Ketu was the shadow that went in front of the sun. Ketu is the tail of the serpent, whereas Rahu, the north node, is the head of the serpent. So Rahu, the north node, the head of the serpent, head of the dragon, is a master of desires and master of illusions. So it's our present life karma that gets us to bring new things into our lives. Whereas Ketu, the south node, the dragon's tail, is all about past life karma. It's about things you've already done. And it is also the destroyer of illusions and delusions and desires. So Ketu, another way to look at Ketu, it's like Hel, the Germanic Norse goddess who was the queen of the underworld. Ketu is also the kind of like the angel of death. So the angel of death can either be an angel of light that's freeing you from like your past traumas, your baggage, your delusions, your issues. And through your life you experience little deaths, you know, jobs end, relationships end, friendships end. And when these things run their course and end, you have to be able to let go of them so you can let new things in your life. And it's like this when your body dies and you move on to the spirit world. You know, you have to let go when it becomes inevitable. And so if you don't let go, the angel of death goes from being an angel of light to being like the Grim Reaper. It's like this monstrous skeleton that's like tearing things out of your life and tearing your life away. So it's all a matter of perspective. And with the Norse goddess Hel, she was basically split down the middle. So one half, she was a beautiful young woman. The other half, she was a corpse. So how you perceive her depends on your ability to let go of your illusions. And you know, the biggest illusion is that really anything can last forever. And there are things that endure, for sure, relationships and you know, traditions and you know, things like that, friendships, but they're always changing. You're never going to relive the same moment twice. It's like with relationships where it's like they always want to have the excitement from like the first few months or the first year indefinitely. They always want to be on that high. Well, you can't have that high forever because nothing is new forever. You have to find new highs. You have to find new things to be happy about, new experiences. So, in little ways, this destroyer of illusions, which is the south node in Ketu and the angel of death, is always working with us with this theme, getting us to let go of things when they've run their course and their time is up. So, with this solar eclipse that happened in Scorpio, it was all about releasing all of the illusions in our lives that were based on unconscious assumptions that are not true, that are not accurate. And the world runs on unconscious assumptions that are usually fed to us by media, fed to us by you know, our families who they're well-meaning but they're not involved in world events, so they really don't know how the world works, but they give us our best approximation. Our teachers in school are like this unless they've, you know, gone out and, you know, done some really high-profile kind of big things. Excuse me. So, in life, we're always having to reevaluate our assumptions when new information comes in so we can have more accurate views of life and the world. But when we don't do this, we get very extreme. We hold on to our old assumptions even though they're not accurate and they're not really based on reality. So when we hang on to assumptions and we refuse to let them go, we have fundamentalism. Ketu, when it's out of balance, when it's not releasing things in a healthy way, is symbolized by like a fundamentalist, a religious fundamentalist, and a terrorist. Because Ketu is very spiritual, but when it's not letting go, it gets very extremist. So getting back to the original point about this Mars Ketu conjunction, when you put Ketu together with Mars, it can be some violent fundamentalism. Whether that's scientific fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism, political fundamentalism, social fundamentalism, doesn't matter. It can be any party, any side. It can be atheists, religious people, doesn't matter. So we're going to see fundamentalism on different levels. We're going to see people who are seeing themselves antagonized by government, which is being puppeteered by the corporations and banks of the deep state. People are going to lash out. They're getting very frustrated. Scorpio deals with, again, anger, frustration, resentment, all that fun stuff. So people are going to lash out. They feel like they're being backed into a corner. And it's like people say, don't back a wild animal into a corner, because it's gonna explode out of that corner, and it's gonna fuck you up. It's gonna hurt you. So I don't advocate violence, but I have no control over what other people do. And especially since, like I talked about in the eclipse video, Australia, the south coast of Australia, where Melbourne, the most locked down city in the world, is, you're going to see an explosion in Melbourne. People are going to get sick and tired of these ridiculous lockdowns and these ridiculous mandates for these experimental gene therapy, the injectable. They're just going to get sick of it, and they're going to blow up. They're going to emotionally blow up. So with Scorpio, it is a water sign, but it's ruled by Mars. So I think of Scorpio as boiling water. People say, well, Scorpio is really ice because it's frozen water, because Scorpio is one of the 4 fixed signs. But I consider Scorpio to be boiling water, because all of our unconscious emotions are already boiling. Even if you're a really happy person, and your love and light in your life feels like unicorns and rainbows, you still have all of the fear and anger and resentment that everyone else has. It's just below the surface and you're not aware of it. So a lot of this anger and resentment in the collective is going to get released. And Ketu cuts things away. Ketu, just like Mars, can be symbolized by blades. So Ketu is going to cut these emotions loose. So you're going to see rioting, protesting, all that kind of stuff, acts of disobedience against government and figures of authority. But then, whenever there's some sort of a revelation or disclosure of information, or whenever people rebel, other people always double down on the status quo. So you're going to see other people doubling down on the status quo. You might see counter-protests where people are like, no, fuck you, and they're fighting against, the lockdown protesters. Good chance you're going to see that. But another interesting thing here too is that I think we could see some sort of 9/11-ish kind of event. I don't think it's going to be on the grand scale, but there's going to be something that, I dare say, changes the world that will happen. Interesting thing about 9/11 was you had Mars and Ketu conjunct. Ketu almost met up with Mars. So Ketu is at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, Mars is at 7. Now Ketu in Sagittarius, that's religious and ideological extremism all day. Now this time they're in Scorpio, but on this day, on today, the 15th, this particular day, they're both right at 7 degrees. So it's kind of like opening Pandora's box, and I don't think we're going to see it right away, but you know, it'll be coming. Now, and I think it's going to manifest probably December 30th when, again, Mars reaches the 18th degree of Scorpio, where the solar eclipse happened 2 weeks ago. And that's in a constellation of Jeshta, which is the dark side of Scorpio, which is all the paranoia, pridefulness, instability, violence, you know, kind of the bipolarity, and just like vindictiveness and vengefulness of Scorpio. So yeah, I think end of the year, it's really going to manifest. Now, a thing about Mars and Ketu being conjunct on 9/11 and now, it just signifies a window where extremism can happen. Now, the interesting thing about 9/11 was the media, these fundamentalist, religious fundamentalist, radical Islamic terrorists pulled that whole thing off, which I don't believe, and most of you watching this undoubtedly, most likely to not believe. But the people pushing that story were terrorists in their own right, and again, it was these deep state players, these heads of oil companies and banks and weapons companies, you know, the merchants of death of the military-industrial complex. So they were terrorizing the world in order to change the world, to clamp down on the world, to put in more surveillance, more social control, financial control, the whole bit. And these people are still at it. So this whole thing with the virus and the experimental injectable medicine that's being mandated, it's like the next phase in the control program, because deep state realizes that if they don't get control of the population right now, they're going to lose it forever because people are waking up. So that's what this is all about. They're trying to induce fear in order to slow down the awakening. So they said that there was this horrible, terrible virus that everybody was going to die from if they don't get injected with the experimental gene therapy. And they closed down the world economy for 2 years. So all these shortages are rolling. There's all kinds of inflation because they've been printing money forever. They're engineering all these frights and these scares, and they're hyping up all these situations to, you know, be the end of the world. So they know that if they don't pull something off, they're going to lose. But they've already lost, and they're like Wile E. Coyote, you know, from Looney Tunes, a coyote and a roadrunner. He's run off the edge of the cliff, but he's still going forward, and gravity hasn't acted upon him yet because he doesn't realize that the earth is not under him anymore. So, yeah, these two eclipses really signaled for a big reckoning for the deep state. So, the point I'm leading up to with kind of that ramble is that basically there's going to be an effort to corral us into a very false dystopian unity. And that's what 9/11 was. It was a false unity. It was a unity bringing people together under false pretenses. It's kind of like if you've seen the movie Watchmen, where what's his name, Ozymandias. He creates basically like a false, well, not an alien invasion, but he makes it look like Dr. Manhattan just like wiped out all of the major cities on Earth in order to create world peace. So basically he created a false threat in order to create world peace. And this is these people's MO. So we could have something like this. Let me get my notebook. I was looking up earlier, you know, US presidents meeting the Pope. Whenever world leaders meet the Pope, because they're going to try to pull off some really crazy shit. So it's like Hitler met the Pope right before he got his progressive infrastructure building programs going and his social welfare programs. He made himself look good, and then he sort of like started doing the dark shit. But he met with the Pope before that, and he got the Pope's blessing. So we look at George W. Bush from the War on Terror days. He met with the Pope in July 2001. And I think this was checking in about executing the 9/11 plan. Now, people think it's just a conspiracy theory that the Pope has any real power. Well, the Pope is a CEO for one of the biggest investment banks in the world. And what the vast majority of governments have in common is they're always in debt and they're always borrowing money from private banks. So the Vatican Bank is like one of these banks that owns central banks, like the European Central Bank and the Federal Reserve, Bank of England, all that kind of thing. And I think even the Vatican Bank is a subsidiary of Swiss banks, because the Vatican went bankrupt in the 1500s and they got a bailout, they got a bankroll from the Swiss. So Pope has a lot of, well, it's like the College of Cardinals has power. They use the Pope as a figurehead, but then behind the Vatican, the banks running it have the real power. So the Pope's the front man, he's a spokesman. So George W. met July 2001 before 9/11 with the Pope, before some crazy shit was pulled off. Met with the Pope again in May 2002, almost a year before the invasion of Iraq. And I can guarantee you they were talking about that, how that whole plan was going to be executed. And then June 2004, and that was probably about how, you know, the Pope saw his end coming near, and that was just about how the wars were going to get strung out, how that whole plan was going to go, how they were going to get the dirty wars in like Libya and Yemen and all that stuff rolling. So then, you fast forward to 2021. Joe Biden met the Pope October, well, ostensibly anyway, if it's not a big hologram, met the Pope on October 29th, 2021. This is the meeting where people are saying Joe Biden pooped his pants. He let out a loud fart and pooped his pants in front of, you know, those world leaders. I wouldn't doubt it. You know, he's got severe signs of dementia. But anyway. And right before a very holy day, you know, before Samhain, you know, the 31st of October, which is, in the old world, was New Year's Eve, and it was when, you know, the veils between worlds are thin and the spirit world is easily contacted. So, yeah, he met the Pope right around then. And they were probably discussing the next thing that they're going to do. So, the next crazy-ass plan that's going to get pulled off. So, I'd say anywhere from December 30th through the first week of March is where the craziness will go off. And there's a damn good chance they're going to try something, because the COVID narrative is utterly falling apart. They have to replace the PCR test back, I think it was in July of 2021. CDC said that they needed a new test because PCR is not reliable. And PCR is the assumption that this whole COVID response is based on. So you can look that up. So, yeah, but when Mars, December 30th, Mars comes to that eclipse degree, 18 degrees Scorpio, where that eclipse happens, it's going to be like stepping on a landmine, and things are really going to blow up. And on that day, Jupiter will be squaring the nodes. It'll be right between the two nodes. So Ketu and Rahu will be in each at 7 degrees of Scorpio and Taurus, respectively. Jupiter will be at 6 to 7 degrees of Aquarius in the middle. So Jupiter is the higher consciousness. It's sort of the expansion of your views and your beliefs and your knowledge. So this is going to be a, you know, if there's not an event on this day, this is a check-in point. You're going to have to make a decision. Are you going to take new information on board and sort of allow your views of things to change based on new information, or are you going to double down on the status quo and basically be a servant of the deep state and further their agenda to screw you? So It is completely up to you. There will also be a Kala Sarpa yoga going on through all this, where all the planets get on one side of the Rahu and Ketu axis, and it makes things just feel utterly out of control and insane. And also on the 30th, you've got Mercury conjunct Capricorn. Mercury conjunct Pluto at 2 degrees of Capricorn. So Pluto is transformation, but it's also control, like control issues. Mercury is the intellect, it's communication, it's media. Capricorn is government. So this is a chance too to realize you're being manipulated and gaslighted by media and government, because Pluto and Saturn together in Capricorn is gaslighting all day long. So you'll either wake up to how badly you're being gaslit, or you're going to double down and you're going to buy into it and go with it. So yeah, I hope this whole thing I keep seeing, you know, where you had the Department of Homeland Security bioterrorism drill, where they were pumping the gas into the New York subway system at 120 different locations with the oligos in it, with the genetic material, the single strands of DNA and RNA. I hope that is not about priming some sort of a bioterror false flag attack. And I keep bringing up how, you know, it reminds me of in Batman, how the Joker had to saturate people's bodies. Saturate people's bodies with chemicals laced into food and health and beauty products before he released the gas on the crowd. So that made me think of, like, you know, something like that being done in Times Square, you know, like a New Year's Eve scenario where there's some biological agent released or some like nerve gas released to pull off some sort of a false flag attack. I hope that's not the case, but you know, Times Square is like a big sitting duck that's kind of ripe to pull off some kind of crazy ass false flag. So let's hope that's not the case, but if it happens, don't buy this story. I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate your viewership. If you've not had a reading with me, be it Vedic astrology or runes, I highly recommend it. Everybody who has readings, they always comment that I have a different way of doing it, and really, these readings are not entertainment. I'm not trying to impress you with my intuitive abilities so you'll keep coming back. These readings are empowerment tools, so that you can make changes in your life and so you don't have to come back. So you can basically kind of work on yourself, because I give you custom-made meditations with these readings, and it's basically like downloading system updates for the operating system of your mind. And I've got some Qigong videos on sale for download. I've got a new one up, which is heart-centered Qigong, really powerful practice. All these are great mind-body practices that help you to basically get your life in order, to get rid of emotional baggage that you've been carrying around. They're really powerful. So I got to get some trailers up soon. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later. Have a nice one.